All right, everybody. Welcome again to BrainSell's webinar on version 6.2 sugar reporting. Just a couple quick notes. Again, if you'd like to follow the conversation live on Twitter, you can type in the hashtag sugar reporting. Questions throughout. This is kind of a specific topic, so we will be taking questions at the end. If you have them as we're going, feel free to type them in your question box, and we will address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. If you've got other questions, feel free to contact us after. Our website is brainsell.net, and got lots of good information there on our upcoming events and other trainings we have going on. Kevin Cook is our presenter today. Kevin is SugarCRM, also runs our open source practice here at BrainSell. And Kevin, if you could bring up the next slide, please. Having a little bit of trouble with that. The basics today that we're going to cover are the new features in version 6.2. So Sugar is coming out with their new version next month in their general release, and resellers like us, partners like us, have the version at hand already. So we've been using it for a little while and are very impressed with the new features. We'll let you go ahead and start with your part here. You go to the next slide. Just having a little bit of an issue there with the PowerPoint. Here we go. Just a couple more notes on who we are. We're a SugarCRM Gold partner, one of the top 5 in the country, and we do all sorts of things with software, so not just sugar. Check out our website again and our blog for more events. If this isn't enough, we love to do these little trainings that are general and open to the public, but it's by the hour. We also do custom programming, business consulting. We're starting a marketing automation sector of the business very soon, so we'll have more on that. And our email for general stuff, sales@brainsell.net. Feel free to reach out to us for anything you need. Next slide, Kev.
All right. There we go. I'll just take over from here, and we'll move on to our presentation talking about sugar reporting. Version 6.2 changed things just a bit. If you are all familiar with sugar in previous incarnations, let me get go to training to do the right thing. There, how's that? Sorry, folks, I got to get go to meeting to do the right thing here. There, you should be seeing. All right, lovely PowerPoint. If you're familiar with reporting, you know some of the things you can do with sugar reporting. The main reason to have a report is that you can look at the data to get good visibility across your entire business. Reports are real-time. You can run them, have what's called runtime filters. So you can run them and have them filter when you run them. You can add dashboards, dashlets, to your home page. I'll show you what those are in just a moment. The reports let you look at marketing, programs, sales, support. They're also restrictable. That means that you may have a report that you can see, but maybe you don't want everybody else to see it. You can restrict your reports as well. You can also make them available only to teams. You'll be able to see on your home page, if you want, certain dashlets. You could add pages that have report charts on them. The whole idea of the reporting is that you want to be able to see, sometimes visually, sometimes in a tabular fashion, exactly what's going on at any time in your business. You know, you may collect lots and lots of data, but unless you can actually pull it up, see it, and act on it. It's really not going to be that useful. Also, you may want to see marketing analytics. How are your marketing campaigns working? Some of these things are, some reports, charts like this, are built into the Sugar model. So you can see at a glance, at the press of a button, what the ROI is on specific campaigns. But it's more than that. You can also dig into a campaign using the reporting and see, tease out information to find out what's most successful. Maybe you're doing A/B testing on a specific piece of messaging. You find out what kind of messaging is most profitable or most responsive. They're generating the most responses. Sales trends. This is what lots of people ask us to help them with. There's also a type of chart called a funnel chart that displays your reporting or your sales pipeline. So that's enough about PowerPoint. I'm done with PowerPoint. PowerPoint makes it possible for lots of people to make bad presentations like me. So I'm going to go straight on over to Sugar. And we'll look at Sugar. You should be seeing this is a demo instance. I'm looking at a fictitious guy named Jim Brennan. This is Jim's home page. And you can see that he's customized it in ways that he likes. He likes to see his dashlets here with cases and reports, some calls and stuff. But he's also got this dashlet here. This dashlet is a reports dashlet. This lets Jim see his opportunities by lead source. This is built right into his home page, so you can see it. It's going to be live whenever he refreshes his page. He's going to see this information. Be real time. You can see it's broken down into segments. Now this is the graphic output of a tabular report. Sometimes I can right-click if it's appropriate. If it's what's called a multivariate report, I can right-click and drill down. You'll see that I can add extra dashlets. We've got some extra dashlets here. These are other report outputs. You can create your own custom pages. It's not part of this webinar, but you can create custom subpages on your home page that are just filled with reports. Let's go straight over to the reports module. When you go to the reports module, you're going to see a list of all your reports. Enterprise and professional, there's 30 plus out-of-the-box reports. I'm looking at an instance of Enterprise, Sugar Enterprise, and there's 61 out-of-the-box reports here. You won't get that many with professional. If I show you, though, something that's unique to Enterprise, I'll let you know. Something here that you may want to note is this little star. Notice I've got calls by team by user. This is a favorites report. If you put star, and you can make this a favorite, this will show up in your favorites report dashboard on your home page, on the home page up here. So if you've got a set of reports that you like to run, that you want to see every day, you want to have quick access to, make them favorites. And put a favorites report dashboard on your home page. So in this list view, you can see there's report types. That's one of the columns here. Now there are 4 primary report types. The most basic type of report. In fact, row and column is kind of like what you're seeing here. It's just a row of records in a module and columns. Row and columns are the simplest. Then you've got a summation, which lets you do things like make totals, look at totals, like the number of calls. For example, this is a summation report, so the number of calls by team by user. So you get a number of calls. Then maybe you want a summation of details. That's the same as it, but then some details about each record. I'm going to show you examples of each one of these. There's also a kind of report, you're not seeing it here, it's on the next page, called a matrix report. A matrix report generates a table that lets you, it's almost like a crosstab. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. I'm going to drill into support cases by type. This is a pretty good example of a summation report with details. Total number of support cases by the type, administrative report, or administrative case, a product case, user-related case. There's some that don't have types associated with them. So this is the graphical output of this report, and down below we have the tabular output. Again, this is a summation report, so here's your summation portion of the report with details, and these are your details. In this case, we're looking at support cases. You're seeing the support case number, the date it was created, and its priority. This may not be a ton of information to you, but it's illustrative of the kind of report that we're looking at. I'm going to go back to my reports list. Show you an example of a rows and columns report. This is something that's a pretty common report for sales managers to run. They want to see who's been called. There's no chart here because this is a row and column report. Now let me talk about the features of a report that are fairly generic. You'll notice that there's some buttons up here. You're going to see a lot of these buttons. These are going to be pretty common across reporting. They're not always going to be the same buttons. Running a report obviously generates the real-time data. You can edit it. We're going to go in and edit in a moment. Duplicating. This is the better report out of the box. It's pretty similar to the one you're looking for, and then duplicate it. That saves you the burden of starting a report from scratch. You can even schedule reports. If I set up a schedule, this will allow me to have the report mailed to me on, in this case, an hourly basis. When do I want to start it? I can start it this morning at 12 a.m. and have it sent to me every hour. Now what will happen is they'll look at the address and email this report to it. I can print this report as a PDF. You may not always have this option. Here's my report as a PDF. I can export this as a CSV file. Again, it may not be appropriate on all types of charts to have a CSV output. So you may not see it in all your reports. But finally, I can export the report. Again, it comes down as a CSV. I'm sorry. I can also delete it. I don't want to delete it. I'm going to go back to my reports list. I showed you a row and column, summation with details, which is very similar to a summation. Now finally, I'll show you the matrix report. And then we'll get into making our own reports. As you can see, there's a graphical output. So I scroll down, I get the tabular data. Now here's the matrix report. What this is doing is it's grouping your results. It's grouping it by user here, and then also by lead source across the top. This is a matrix report of opportunities won by user by lead source. So what it does is it's grouping in two different ways, and then it's giving you a sort of a report within a report. I'm going to go back to my reports, my main reports page. Summations with details. As I said, those are pretty common. Summation with details, these are one of the most common reports. Row and column reports are useful, but they're really just a dump of the database. When you want to start tabulating data and seeing what's going on, a summation with details is probably going to be your most common report. I'm going to go in here to my leads by status by rep. Leads by status by rep, and you can see here's my output, graphical output. And then I come down here and I see the tabular data. Notice here that I'm putting a name in here, so this becomes clickable. Reports are going to do a lot automatically for you. If you put in a name of a record, it makes that clickable. So you can drill down into the actual record.
Kevin, as you go through this, could you also point out what are the new things? Because I already noticed the report visuals look different, and just a couple of things like your download of that CSV and the new version.
One of the things that's different here in Sugar 6.2 is the fact they're no longer using Flash. In the past, they're using Flash, and that caused some problems on iPads and other devices. But now they're using dynamic HTML and JavaScript to create these charts. That's one primary difference. There's some other things that you're going to see in this version and later versions as we work through the editing of a report. That's what I'm going to do now. So this is, remember this type of report, leads by lead status. Like I said, the best way to create a report is to duplicate an existing one and work from there. So now I duplicated it, and it takes me immediately to my edit screen. This is a report, a summation report with details. You're going to see the various steps in the creation of the report along the top. These are going to change for each report type. You're going to have more steps for the more sophisticated reports and fewer steps for the less sophisticated reports. The very first step, which is common to every report type, is to select the module. In this case, we're making a report about leads. So we've selected the leads module. The next step, and again, it's common to all report types, is to define your filters. What's a filter? The easiest way to describe a filter is to say, for example, all of the leads that came in today. That would be a today filter, a date filter. This filter is a type of status. It's saying, show me all the leads that are of a single type of, or of one of this type of status. I can add other filters by clicking on the fields in the leads module. I can add multiple filter groups. We'll get into this in just a minute. But most interesting here is I can make this a runtime feature. That means that whenever I want to run the report, I can change this filter. This is particularly important if you're using a date filter. Maybe you want something to, you want to specify this last quarter. But then tomorrow when you run the report, you really want to see last week. Doesn't mean you have to always change it, but it gives you the option of changing your runtime filter or changing these filters at runtime. Let me explain a little bit about the interface for reporting. Sugar is a very rich reporting capability, but the interface can sometimes be a little confusing until you get used to it. My biggest advice is everywhere you see this eye, hover over it and it'll give you some information about what to do. So what are we looking at here? In the main part of the screen, you're going to see the data that corresponds to the stage that you're in. On the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see two boxes. The first box is the module that you're looking at. Remember, we started with the leads module here. When I click the leads module, I'm going to get a list of all the lead fields, all the things that I can work with at this stage of my report. Now, as I move through the steps of a report, these fields may change. because it may not always be appropriate to pull an actual field at every stage of the report creation. Let me show you an example of how I might set it. What I've done here is to get the lead status. I'm going to throw this away. I click on the leads module. Then down here, I'm going to find the status. Oops. I'm going to find the status field. When I click status, it brings that up here to a filter. And then it lets me choose some logic. Is one of, and then I can choose the statuses that I've got in my database. I can add other filters. So here it's saying choose a status that's one of these, but let's add another one. Let's say it was a lead that was created recently. So I'm going to select the date created filter. Before, well, I'll say in the last 30 days. So now I've got two filters. The lead status is one of these statuses, and it was created within the last 30 days. There's much more I can do with filtering. I can add groups. Notice I just added another group here. And again, working with the same module, leads, I'm going to say, with a birth date on May 18th, today. This is a little silly, but it illustrates what we need to do. So I'm going to select all the leads that are one of these, created within the last 30 days, and that have a birth date on today. I can make this an OR. This is obviously going to change my output. So you can see you've got a lot of possibilities here. It can be complex, but you've got a lot of possibilities. I'm going to get rid of some of these and step through to my next step. The next step is define the group by. Remember, this is a summation report with details. So what it wants me to do now is group by something. What are we summing? In this case, we're grouping by the username that the lead is assigned to and the status. And just like in the first step, I click my leads module, and then I would come down here and find the status, click it, and that adds this. Now this filter, or this group by, is a little bit more in depth. I can't take it right out of the leads module. I have to find a related module assigned to user, and then scroll down and choose the username. Click and bring it up. The principle is the same. I've got the modules that I need to choose from and the appropriate fields in the bottom part of the screen. After I've grouped them by those two fields, I'm going to move on to my next step where I get to choose the summaries. It's always going to choose the two fields that I've grouped them by, or the fields that I've grouped them by. That would only make sense. But I want to add another one here. I'm going to add the lead count. So I click on count, and that brings this up. One more thing I can do here is I can sort it. I'm going to sort by the username, alphabetically ascending. Notice something here. There's a trash can around the one that I added. That's because it's an optional field. I added it. But there's no trash cans here. That means that we have to group, we have to use these summaries. These are required, and they're required because I added them in the group by step. All right, let's move on. Now I've chosen my display summaries. Now I can choose what display columns to see. These are the details. I'm going to choose leads, name, title, their mobile phone, the lead source, and their office phone. And again, I do that by selecting a module, in this case leads, and then the fields that I want down here. You can add as many fields as you want to display. Just be careful of it. As you add these fields, you might get into a lack of real estate on your screen. But that's okay, because you can always go back and remove them. Again, I'm going to tell it to sort by the name in an ascending fashion. Now I'm going to move on to my second to last step, where I add the chart type. Now, not every report is going to allow you to create a chart. For example, a row and column report. That's really not appropriate for a chart, so this stage doesn't apply to that type of report. But the other types of reports, or an output, a graphical output, is appropriate. It gives me the choice of what type of report or what type of chart to see. In this case, remember I'm looking at leads by status and user. So I'm just going to stick with a horizontal bar chart. And then what's it based on? Well, I'm going to base it on the count. Here's my description of my chart. On to the final stage, where I give my report a name. Sorry, by status. Now, there's one last thing that is often confusing. Notice down here this checkbox. If I were looking at a report and there were a lead that was not assigned to anybody, well, that probably isn't going to happen in your instance of Sugar. But if it didn't have this assigned to field, if this is blank, it wouldn't show up. That lead would not show up in my report, because I've told it to show me all the leads that are assigned to certain users. So if this field is blank, it doesn't show up. But Sugar gives me the opportunity to check this box and say, show me all the records, even if there's no assignment. Now again, that's it's a little silly, because records ought to be assigned to somebody. But imagine if you said, show me everybody who has a birthday today. And you really want to see everybody and their birthday, but you want to specify the birthday. Say, well, if there's nobody with a birthday today, it won't show you anything. And you're going to think, oh my goodness, I've generated a report that my report's not working. Well, no, it is working. You just need to check this box to say, show me everybody, even if it doesn't really satisfy, even if this record is blank, field is blank. So now we've edited this. I'm going to save it and run it. And it ought to look pretty similar to what we saw before. Indeed, here it is. Here's my chart with my description in place. And then the tabular data. Again, because one of the fields I chose was a name field, it made this clickable, and it'll take me over to Alexis Berkeley's contact record, lead record, I'm sorry. So let's go in and I'll show you how I might add one more field in here, just to remind us how we do these things. I'm going to edit this and change a couple of things. I'm going to change the display columns. This time I'm going to add the person that this is assigned to. So we're going to get one more field here. It's got the person that this is assigned to. Now this column ought to be the same as my summary column. I did this on purpose because I want you to see this is my summary column, my summary field up here, and it matches the column that I just added. Something to notice about these summary reports is you can collapse them all. Oftentimes, companies will generate very large reports. It makes the most sense in that case to collapse them and then expand the ones you want to see. So now let's go in and take a more complicated case, as if that weren't complicated enough. I'm going to look at a matrix report. Let's go in and edit this matrix report. What we're going to do is change the date that we're looking at, the dates that we're looking at. Does everybody remember how to modify or how to create your own custom reports? The best way is to duplicate it and edit the duplicate. In this case, we're looking at a matrix report. It's based on the Opportunities module. And we're adding the first filter, Sales Stage. We only want to see those opportunities that we've won. As I move on to the next step, we're grouping the records that it's outputting by the username, the close date, and the lead source. Now, a matrix report has one unique requirement. You have to have at least 2 group bys. Sometimes in our previous report, we had a summation with details. I could have only grouped by the username. But with a matrix report, you have to have at least 2. And remember what the output of the report looks like. That's because we're grouping in 2 ways, across the top and across the bottom, or across the sides. In this case, we've added a third grouping called lead source. Now I'm choosing the display summaries. What's it going to summarize on? And this is where maybe I'm going to say, instead of my month expected close date, let me back up a step. Instead of my month expected close date here, I'm going to look at the opportunities, and I'm going to change it to the quarter expected close date. I'm going to drag it up to change the order, move on to the Display Summaries field. I'm going to tell it to sort by quarter. Finally, I can set my chart options. Now I have to name it. Now remember this, if an opportunity is not assigned to somebody, it won't show up. Again, that's okay because every record in Sugar ought to be assigned to a user. But now this is another important thing, and this is unique to matrix reports. Do you want this to be a 2x1 or a 1x2? I'll show you how that plays out. Let's leave it at 2x1. We're going to save it and run it. You'll see there's my pie chart. I'm just going to hide it here. And now I see, instead of before where I had my monthly tallies, now I've got my quarterly tallies. Where's Q3 and 4? Well, they're not showing up yet because we're only in Q2. So now this is showing each user opportunities that they've won grouped by lead source and the quarter. It summarizes it down the left or down the right-hand side and across the bottom. So now let's see what stands out. This is how you do some good business analysis. This stands out. What is this? Wow, your emails and other sources are really piling things up. So you'd have to dig into your data to find out what's going on here. This is a successful run. So what we've looked at are some of the basic types of reports. We've looked at some simple ones like a row and column report. We've looked at a more common one, your summations and your summations with details. And then we just went into the matrix report, which is the most complicated type of report. What I haven't shown you is enterprise reporting. I'm not going to get into that now because enterprise reporting is less common, but I will tell you what it does for you. Enterprise reporting lets you change the output of a report, and it also lets you add your own custom queries. You can write your own SQL. Again, we won't get into too much. I don't want to go into any more detail about this because most people are happy with the professional reporting. If you get into the instance where you need to write your own SQL, then talk to us and we'll set you up.
So Kevin, I have a couple general questions here that are pretty good. I know we touched on the getting rid of Flash and most of Sugar, but what other differences are there specifically in this version of 6.2 in reporting?
What you're going to see are some of the things you can filter on. Remember we saw filter by quarter? That's a new feature. You're going to have the ability to add certain types of fields. Let me pull up an example of, here, this is one I was just looking at. As we add our filters, I'm going to edit this. And we add the filters. You're going to have a different, adding date filters, for example. I'm going to add the date created here.
Kevin, your screen might be delayed. It's not showing. We're still stuck on your report screen. There we go.
Okay, sorry. Go to webinar. Must have slowed down for a moment. The important differences are some of the things you can add, the way it handles dates. Sugar will be working on, not in this version, in upcoming versions, even more ways to handle dates. Notice that when we added the group by, this is month close date, but I could change this to quarter. I can add the quarter here. I should get rid of this and add quarter.
Great. And Kevin, we have a specific one that keeps coming up. Robin has a good point here from the display screen.
Yep.
There's only one field that you can sort by, she says, and no more. It would be great if you could sort by like a lead source in alphabetical order. Could you do that?
I'm not sure I get the question. Tell me again. This is from Robin?
It is, and it may be nice, like maybe it's in the finished product when you're already in the final report. Could you sort by from those columns? Here you go.
I see. Yeah, this is my list view. I'm going to pull up row and column report specifically. Let's pull up. I'm going to go to my previous page. Here, all contacts by industry. A good basic report. I can sort by name. If you can sort by it in your list view when you spit it out in the report, you'll be able to sort by it as well.
Great.
But you can also, when you edit this report, and Robin, this may be appropriate to you, when you choose your display columns, you can always check this radio button here and indicate that this is one of the things that you want to sort by. Let me show you how this we can expand on that. I'm going to add not just the contacts and their name, but I'm going to get a little bit more in depth here. This is something that I wanted to touch on after we cover the basics. In the previous reports, we really did just look at we made a report about based on the leads module, the opportunities module, and pretty much we were taking information from those modules. But where the reporting module really shines is the fact that you can pull information from related modules. For example, the contact. This is just contacts by industry. I'm going to pull up contacts. I'm going to display columns here, and I'm going to show their account and the account industry. I'm going to sort by the contact name, ascending. I'm going to save and run this just so you see what the output's going to look like. So here's the contact name, it's sorted alphabetically, and here's their industry. And Robin, by the way, I could also come in here and sort on this.
And Kevin, can you just do ascending, or is there another option besides ascending in that drop-down?
Ascending or descending.
Okay.
In this case. I'm going to go back here and edit this report again. Now let's get a little more complicated. Let's say I want to see my contacts. I'm going to look at their industries, but gosh, I also want to see my users and calls that we're placing to these people. So I'm going to go into not just calls that I'm placing to the contacts, but any call that I'm placing to the account for which this contact works. So we're getting a little detailed here. Now I just selected my account module in the left-hand field up here. And instead of selecting industry, now I'm going to put the account name. Drag it up a little higher. And then I'm going to expand this calls folder here. I'm going to look at calls when they are created and the subject. So now this is a pretty interesting report here. I've created a report that's going to show me all of my contacts, rows and columns, but all my contacts, the name of the company they work for, the industry of the company they work for, and any calls that we've had to anybody at this company.
And Kevin, we just have a request from the last screen. If you could just click on that sort by button so we can see what else is there. Yeah.
I can sort by. No, I moved off it. Let me save this, run it. I'll come back and show you. Ascending or descending are your choices here. Now this is what I was talking about before. You may have an account for which you've placed no calls, or to which you've placed no calls. Now, that account won't show up, and that contact won't show up in this report unless I check this box. Let me run this report and show you. So now I'm seeing all my report, all my contacts, the companies they work for, and a little bit about the last time we called them and why we called them. Now here's something else I want to look at. As I look at this report, wow, I see that we're making a bunch of calls to ABC Inc. So it would make some sense that we group these together. So now I think I'm going to come back here and I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to make this a summation report, and I'm going to group these by name, by the contact name and the company name. All right, I'm going to get rid of this filter. This is contacts, all my contacts. I'm going to group by the company name and the industry. Now I'm going to display the summaries of the company name. And I'll answer your question here. What are my choices? Ascending and descending. See here? I choose ascending. And now what do I want to see? I'm going to keep the same things in my display, but I really don't need the name of the company because I'm putting that in my summary column. I'll keep the name of the person. Now let's run it. I'm going to collapse all. This is a pretty big report, so I'm going to collapse all like I suggested. And now I've got the company names, the calls we've made to them, or I'm sorry, the company names as I expand, let's say Apple. I've got the people here and the calls we've made to them. Now this is a pretty good and useful report. one that doesn't exist out of the box, but we created it by stepping from a row and column report, noticing that some things are repeating themselves and ought to be grouped, and then creating a summation report.
Kevin, we have a general question here from before.
Sure.
Let's say we're creating a report on support tickets, and we have thousands of support tickets. Is Sugar able to handle that amount of data?
Absolutely. Now, your report's going to be big, so it may be that the best practice in that case would be to limit the output to, say, a date range or something like that, because I don't know how useful it's going to be to read a report that's got thousands of entries. Maybe it is, and if that's the case, then make it.
Great.
Sugar can handle it.
And you can also, Matthew, just real quick, we can also save this as a PDF. And you do that by just saying save. Right, Kevin?
Oops, I got to name it. Let me name it and I'll show
Great.
you. I'm going to save this. I can print this as a PDF right here, this button.
Perfect. Great. So everyone, I know we're kind of running up against the clock here. Kevin, if you want to bring up that final slide.
Sure.
Guys, we did have a little bit of a contest here, make things interesting. We are going to give away free custom reporting with Kevin. There are some limits as to what that entails. You can find this offer on our homepage. There's a link to our blog, and you can enter right from this button. Kevin, just go back to the, here you go, or right from this short bit link that you see on the PowerPoint right there.
You gotta love PowerPoint. You gotta love PowerPoint.
Or you can go to BrainSell.net, and Kevin, if you bring that up, that's a real easy way to get there. Our website, BrainSell.net, and right on the home page, you'll see that blog post down below. There you go. On the home screen, you'll see right there, win a free custom SugarCRM report build. So Kevin will spend a little bit of time with each person. This is the first 5 people to sign up for this, and we'll contact you via email. Just to note, we're going to do a series of really cool marketing automation with Sugar webinars. From the entry form that you're going to see when you go to that page, that's all linked into Sugar. So when you guys sign up, your information actually gets fit into Sugar from that form field. It is incredibly useful. So we're going to have a webinar on that shortly, how you guys could automate your marketing more through Sugar. And also, I'm just going to put up a poll question right now. We love doing these events for everyone, and we'd just love to see what everyone thinks our next webinar should be on. These are just a couple suggestions. If you do have more pointed ones, feel free, again, to email us or go on our blog. You can comment on that free offer. We're always looking for more useful things to do these events on. And we will be having the next webinar probably next week or the week after. Just keep checking our events page. And we will contact you guys, the winners of those free report builds with Kevin, very shortly.
Yeah, we'll try to knock these out. We'll try to contact you this week if we can, if you're around. But go to that, go to our homepage, look for the Win a Free Custom Sugar Report Build. The first 5 people to fill out that form will contact you and try to get your report built.
Great. And everyone, just that little insider tip, everyone pay attention to that form field that you're filling out, because as you fill that out, our tricky marketers here, your information gets captured and put into Sugar. And wouldn't you love that to happen from your homepage? So it's kind of the science behind the scenes, what is actually happening there. And we can touch on that in our next webinar if that's what y'all think. Another note is if you go to our events page on our site, we have all these recorded. We do have a couple general Sugar Skills events, so you can just click on the recordings and watch those at your leisure. And we'll also send you this recording in an email after the event. So thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you at another BrainSell event. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Happy reporting.